I lost my job the night I saved a stranger. By sunrise, the lock on my door was changed. If one act of kindness could cost you your bed and your next meal, would you still do it? I was 17 and running on fumes, a thin jacket over tired bones, pedaling a squeaky little bike through air so dry it scratched my throat. Streetlights blinked like they were nodding off, faraway generators hummed like sleepy bees, and my phone buzzed with a final warning I could feel in my stomach. One more late delivery, and I was done, and rent was already breathing down my neck. You know what I mean, that edge of the cliff feeling where even your breath feels borrowed and the wind sounds like a bill collector. I turned onto a quiet street and saw him, an old man under a weak light at a bus stop, scarf hanging loose, thin clothes, hands shaking around a crumpled paper. People moved around him like water around a stone, heads down. Hurry on their faces, no one saying the simplest sentence we owe each other. Are you okay? I slowed, hated that. I slowed, checked the time, felt that electric panic crawl up my spine, looked away, started to roll past. 3 turns of the wheel. 4. Then my mom's voice showed up in the one corner of me that still felt like home. If you see someone alone like that, you stop. It doesn't matter who they are. I squeezed the brakes. My bike made a small knowing cry. I didn't rush him, didn't spook him, just stepped into the little circle of light and said, "Good evening, sir. Are you okay?" He blinked, slow eyes, cloudy teeth chattering. "I missed the last bus," he whispered. "White Gate Roses. My name is John." He held that note like it was the last thread he had. My scarf was the only warm thing I owned that night. I wrapped it around his neck, tucked the ends under his chin, said, "We'll get you home." The back rack on my bike had carried boxes. Before tonight, it would carry a person. I braced his arm, eased him onto the rack, told him to hold the sides. I knew the clock wasn't going to forgive me. I knew my manager wouldn't either, but I chose anyway. Help people who are alone and lost. That was my mother's religion, and in that moment, I was the most faithful kid in the city. We pushed into the wind. He murmured like a compass, "White Gate Roses," and I kept saying, "I hear you, I hear you." A kiosk glowed up the street with a hand-painted sign that said, "Hot drink." I stopped, counted out coins meant for laundry, bought 1 cup of tea, and wrapped my hands around it, like it could teach me how to be warm again. He nudged it back to me with a steady kindness. "You first," he said. "You need strength to pedal." I took a small sip to honor him, burned my tongue, hissed at myself, laughed anyway. "You're too old to be freezing, sir." And he chuckled like he'd been waiting to hear that. For a second, the cold stepped back. He told me his wife had planted roses by a white gate, how the yard smelled sweet when the wind moved through, how his granddaughter used to wear blue gloves and lose one, then the other would show up by the back steps. I held up my hands. My gloves were once bright blue too. Maybe they liked to play. And he smiled, that small, steady smile old men earn by living long enough. Back on the bike, I tuned out the buzz of my phone and tuned into his humming, a lullaby with no words. The road shook us sometimes, but my hands stayed steady. When the wind pushed, I pushed back. "You okay?" I asked once. "I am with a brave girl," he said, so, yes. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Then we saw it. Tall, clean, a white gate with a little painted rose, a motion light that clicked on like it recognized him. The family name on the wall matched the shaky letters on his paper. I helped him down, rang the bell, and a young man in neat clothes hurried out. "Sir, where did you go? We were so worried." The old man said, "I went for a ride," like he'd been saving that joke just for this moment. The driver's name was David. He thanked me like the word cost money. I tore a corner off an old receipt, wrote my name and number, pressed it into Mr. John's hand. Just in case, then I did the hardest part of any rescue story. I left. By the time I reached my building, the city had gone quiet. No radio down the hall, no neighbor arguing with the kettle, just a plastic bag on the ground, with my life inside. 2 pairs of jeans, a thin towel, a worn charger, my mother's photo in a little frame. The note on the door said, "It clean, rent late, lock changed." I tried the key anyway, like hope could pick a lock. It stuck for a second, like it wanted to be kind, then remembered who it worked for now. I lifted my mom's photo, touched the glass, whispered, "I tried." The wind rolled dust across my shoes, like even the night was moving on. My phone rang. My manager didn't ask about the cold, or the bus stop, or the man with the shaking hands. He asked where I was, why the customer had called 3 times, why I thought I could play hero on the clock. I told him the truth. I helped a lost old man get home. It was freezing. I couldn't leave him. "I'll make up the hours. I'll work extra." He said the sentence people use when their heart is closed. "You're fired. Bring your uniform next week for your last pay." And then I was listening to a dial tone. Yeah, that happened. So there I stood. No job. No room. No plan. If it were you, what would you have done? Be honest with me. I considered a bus station bench, a church stoop, all the places you can be technically alive and completely unsafe. I told myself the only prayer I could manage: keep moving. I pedaled until I saw a mini-mart with a bright sign and a door that wasn't locked. Inside, a man with kind eyes looked at the dust on my jacket and the tired in my face and said, "My name is Mr. Peter. Come in close. The door. Wipe these bottles slow and neat. You can warm up here." That sentence kept me standing. His assistant was a younger guy named Victor, tight mouth, narrow eyes, the look of somebody who collects resentment like bottle caps. He watched me like a security camera with opinions. I kept my head down, lined up, biscuits swept the floor, wiped the glass until I could see a version of myself I almost recognized. When the store went quiet for 2 minutes, Mr. Peter handed me a cup of warm water and a nod. Sometimes a nod is the difference between tonight and never. 3 evenings later, the air smelled like soap and sugar. The register drawer slid open, and Victor shouted that 2,000 was missing. He pointed at me so fast, you would have thought he'd been warming up his finger all day. "You were near the counter," he said. "Don't pretend I'll call the police." I said I'd been wiping the glass, not the till. Mr. Peter raised his hand, with that slow authority kind men have when they've lived enough to hate unfairness. "Not so fast, we don't accuse without proof." He went to the back. I heard a keyboard, the soft click of a screen waking up. Victor smirked like he knew a secret. Mr. Peter came back with a remote, turned the TV on first camera angle from above, then a second from lower and to the side. "Backup camera," he said, like he was reading a label. And there it was, timestamp and everything. Victor opening the till earlier, looking left, looking right, slipping the cash into his pocket, closing the drawer like the world had promised not to notice. Silence. The kind that makes a room feel smaller. Victor stammered something about checking balances, while his face did that pale, red, pale dance shame makes you do. Mr. Peter, who had been gentleness itself, set his voice like a door in a frame. "You lied, and you tried to blame someone who did nothing wrong." Victor grabbed his bag, tossed some weak words over his shoulder, slammed the door, and the little bell above it shook like it had opinions. Mr. Peter turned back to me, said he was sorry. Told me I could sleep in the storeroom, lock the door from the inside if it made me feel better. I said thank you more times than was cool, because sometimes gratitude is a ladder you climb out of a hole with. I lay on that little cot between boxes that smelled like sugar and soap, and prayed not with fancy words, just with breath. Keep going. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The next morning, a clean black car waited by the curb, like it had been told I belonged in quiet places. David stepped out holding that torn receipt, said Mr. John remembered everything. The scarf, the tea, the humming, the way I said, hold on tight. And he wanted to see me. Mr. Peter nodded, go, you're safe. I slid into a car seat softer than any bed I'd had watched the city pass like a movie, being careful not to wake the audience, and we stopped in front of a mansion that was not the white gatehouse. Bigger, calmer, like a deep breath you didn't know you needed. Inside, Mr. John walked in steady and clear, the fog gone from his eyes. He thanked me until the word thank you felt new again. Then he said it, this is not charity, this is gratitude. I hear you have nowhere to stay, stay here for a while, rest, eat. Don't worry about the cold tonight. Sir, I said I don't want to take advantage. You aren't, he said. You gave me care when I was weak. Let me give you rest while you find your feet. And then the twist. He offered me 3 things I never saw coming. First, a job. Help me put my affairs in order. The office papers, letters, the pieces life leaves scattered when your mind has been tired. Second, go back to school. You are smart and brave and kind. That combination deserves a diploma. Third, he leaned closer. Let's start a youth foundation, small at first, then bigger scholarships, job training, tutoring, safe beds for kids in sudden trouble. I will handle the money, he said, you handle the heart. Do you hear the ground shifting under a sentence like that? Because I did. I said yes before fear could invent reasons. We wrote a name in a little notebook, Sunlight Foundation, then wrote the mission in simple lines. Help them learn, help them work, help them sleep safely. I called Mr. Peter to place our first order for notebooks and pencils, because kindness should meet kindness, and his laugh came through the line like heat. Then we went to work. Days found their rhythm. Paperwork turned into pathways. Donors showed up with backpacks and boxes of pencils and the kind of money that buys time. We opened a study corner where little ones sounded out words and got clapped for trying. We set up a skills table where older kids learned to write a resume, to speak in an interview without apologizing for existing, to show up on time and tell the truth. We found 2 safe beds with clean sheets that smelled like sun and wrote a small note to tuck by the pillow. You are safe here, and then a different wind. Victor, if you can believe it, posted a video calling me a manipulator, a gold digger. The whole tired playlist that gets clicks. The lies ran fast, because lies know the shortcuts. Reporters started calling, neighbors whispered, the doorbell buzzed. David asked if we should make a statement. Mr. John said something I have written on the inside of my head now. Kindness shouldn't need to defend itself. So we kept working. But I won't lie, my chest felt tight. Truth doesn't shout, it stands. But sometimes it needs a microphone. Mr. Peter uploaded that backup camera clip with 4 words that still make me tear up. Here is the truth. People watched. Old customers commented. Even my former manager posted a note. She missed one delivery because she helped an old man in the cold. I was angry, then I respect her now. The lies had to back up. Some outlets added corrections, some loud voices went quiet, and the quiet good people sent small donations with bigger hearts. If it were you, would you forgive the ones who believed the worst first, or would you keep a list? Do you think that's fair or just human? From there we grew. 1 center became 3 over time. Study corner, skills room, safe beds. Volunteers came with open hands. I went back to school in the mornings, foundation. In the afternoons, ate real dinners thanks to David, who made sure I didn't forget to be a person, then slept in a room where fear didn't sit at the foot of the bed like a guard dog. Evenings were soft in Mr. John's greenhouse warm air, and green leaves him humming that same little tune I heard on the bike, me reading off lists of names we'd helped that day. He'd say, "You make this place breathe," and I'd tuck that sentence somewhere safe. A local TV crew showed up once, and the reporter didn't ask for drama. She asked the right question: "Why do you do this work?" I looked at the homework table and the clean beds and said the line that has become my backbone: kindness is strength, not weakness. And when we help one person, the world gets a little brighter. You know what I mean? You could feel the room agree. Mr. John slowed down. Some days he walked with a stick, some days he preferred to sit by the window, where the light was kind. He took my hand one afternoon and said, "Promise me something. Keep the light burning when I am here, and when I am gone," I promised. One night he went to sleep and did not wake up, and the house exhaled that long, soft breath homes save for good men. At his funeral I stood steady and said, "Family is who walks you home in the dark," and Mr. John did that for me, so we will do it for others. The clapping sounded like prayer. 3 days later, David brought me a sealed letter. "My dear Jessica," it read, "thank you for giving me back my best years. I entrust the Sunlight Foundation. To your leadership, lead with truth, lead with care. Remember, real wealth is what we share with love." I pressed the paper to my chest and told him I would make him proud, and then I went to work like Joy had a list. We tightened governance because good money attracts bad ideas. Open books, simple rules, clear reports. We expanded scholarships to cover fees, uniforms, bus rides that keep kids in school. We opened small apartments for teens aging out of orphanages with kitchens where you can learn to cook more than noodles and tables where meals taste like belonging. We added a gentle wing for elders with no one warm rooms, soft songs, kind hands. In every place, a card on the wall. Kindness is strength, not weakness. Here's the twist some people argue about when I tell this story in person. I didn't know it when I chose to stop at that bus stop. But Mr. John wasn't just comfortable. He was wealthy on a scale headlines like to call billionaire. He could have written checks with his eyes closed, but his mind had been cloudy and his purpose had gone quiet until a girl in a thin jacket put a scarf around his neck and said, "Hold on tight." Was I lucky, or was I just doing the right thing? And the right thing did what it sometimes does. It led me to the next right person. Which version sits better with you, and which version makes you braver tomorrow? And now I want to leave you with the part I can't stop thinking about. Was it fair that I lost my job for helping someone in the cold? Should an app timer have that much say over a human moment? On the other hand, would you be okay if your dinner arrived late because your courier stopped to be a hero? Do we need better policies, emergency credits, a button that buys a worker 30 minutes for a human reason? We say we love kindness, but we build rules that punish it. Which one do we really believe? And what about the online chorus? The way a lie can sprint while truth ties its shoes. The way one angry video can turn strangers into a jury. That camera saved me, but do we want a world where every moment needs proof? Are you comfortable with that trade? Spotlight or sunlight? Which is it? If it were you, what would you have done? I still ride by the white gate sometimes. There's a rose bush there, pink and stubborn, and I say thank you out loud, because gratitude is maintenance for your soul. Mr. John's letter hangs above my desk. On the hard days, I read that line again. Real wealth is what we share. And then I go back to work, because there is always one more kid who needs a book, one more teenager who needs a safe bed, one more old man at a bus stop, under a mean light, who needs someone to stop and ask, "Are you okay?" If this story hit you somewhere tender, tell me what you would have done that night. Ride past, stop, Give your scarf. Keep your job. Do you think that's fair, the way the system timed my compassion? Argue with me, agree with me, tell me where I'm wrong, and share your own story if you have one. The time you chose to help, and it cost you something, or the time you didn't, and still think about it. Like the video, so the quiet kind of good doesn't get buried. Subscribe if you want more true inspired stories, told plain and honest, and drop your comment right now. Because the next kid standing at a crossroads might read what you write and choose kindness, and that choice might change a life, maybe theirs, maybe yours.